Welcome back to the second episode of our unfair difficulty playthrough with the Mist Eaters on Into the Breach. With me, Cockroach Tea Party, also known as CTP. Mechs are on screen. We've got Ralph Carlson in the thruster mech with fracturing shells, which I'm struggling with the UI to show you how that weapon works. Importantly, Ralph also has Technician. We've got a starting pilot in the Smog mech with the smoke upgrades. And finally, Archimedes in the Control mech with a fully upgraded Control Shot. Now, for our next island, I'm looking at what awaits us. We've got a Tumblebug Leader as the boss on Pinnacle, which will be a challenge, as well as the Arachnid Scions. Archive looked like just kind of a random grab bag. But Detritus, for some reason, I was like, Detritus seems easy. Let's do an easy island. I was mistaken. And that mistake is called tumblebugs, ladies and gentlemen. For all the power of the Mist Eaters, their primary weakness is forced movement. Yes, Control Shot is a very powerful movement tool, but it only affects a single target. Otherwise, your forced movement options are very limited, and because of that, tumblebugs prove to be my nemesis on this island, and we will see why shortly. Because I'm looking at my various options, and I didn't like the chance of killing 7 enemies in that middle mission. So I'm like, I'll just defend the train. I'm one of the strongest squads in the game. I'm the Mist Eaters. Of course I can defend a train. And I forgot to use my big boy brain, because tumblebugs are really, really bad on train missions. If they put their boulders in the middle of the train tracks, the only way those are going away is if you blow them up or if the train runs into them and is destroyed. And with my forced movement options being very limited, also, Control Shot does not move unstable boulders. They have no inherent movement ability. They're not a valid target. So, with that big miscalculation, and the fact that this is a 3-objective mission, so it starts at a 6v3, although really it's more like a 5v3 because we've got the Shell Scion here, we have problems. We've got a double stack of Vec in the way of the train. I lack the offensive capability to kill any of them, nor do I have the space to move them. So the train is doomed. Unless someone else sees something that I did not, I don't think there was a way to stop the train from smashing into one of the Vec. So I am already, off the bat, forfeiting my perfect island reward for this island. Now, this isn't necessarily the end of the world. We are the Mist Eaters. We are very strong. We don't necessarily need every last upgrade and every last pilot. But they are nice to have, certainly. And with that knowledge, my next priority is just to try and defend the grid as best I can. This was also something maybe of a bit of a misplay here, because in killing the Shell Scion, the Mosquito, I believe, goes before the Leaper in initiative order. And my original plan was for the Leaper to kill the Mosquito, and then the train would run over the Tumblebug, and then I would have one less Tumblebug to worry about over the course of the mission. But I miscalculated. Instead, the Mosquito is dead, we lose a Leaper. That's okay, but we still have both Tumblebugs on the board. And you can see that this, the board is already a unstable, boulder-choked nightmare. We've also got that Leaper inhibiting our ability to move around. It's bad. So we do a little bit of self-damage here, just to free the thruster mech and also cancel the Tumblebug's attack. And that will protect the grid and what remains of our mission objectives for now, which leaves Archimedes free to take a turn as best he can. Looks like I wind up... I consider blocking a spawn with Archimedes, but instead I think I elect to move the thruster mech a little bit further into the center of the board, just to give thruster mech a little bit better positioning, and keep the control mech near the tumblebugs for tumblebug wrangling, which is going to be very important. Also, if I leave a mech right at that spot, I believe it traps the tumblebug. I'm not sure if they can move through boulders, so he's essentially neutralized for a turn. But we still have functionally a 5v3 here, which could be really bad. So yeah, as you saw, that tumblebug was a non-factor. I trapped it. But here is a really tricky turn. This one took me a long time to see a solution, because we have 3 threats to the grid. My smog mech is restrained and will perish if I do not free it from the leaper. And we have a scarab targeting the train in an attempt to finish it off. Now, I mess around with my positioning. I try committing a few different moves. I definitely want to try and protect the defense lab so we can get that extra power core. And I can protect myself with the smog mech because I have the smoke upgrade, which produces, 2 more extra smoke tiles. But that left that tumblebug to assault the grid, and I was unhappy about that because so far we have a perfect score. And even though I've already gotten a 40k with the Meat Eaters, I was like, you know what, it'd be cool if I could get another 40k. For the channel. For the fans. So I'm like, okay, let's try and commit to grid defense as much as we can. We can give up the ghost on the train. So we can do a 2-for-1 here. We can free the smog mech, and then thanks to the initiative order, the leaper will kill the tumblebug for us. That leaves everyone else doing cleanup duty. It just means the train is doomed. And we will use fracturing shells to push that scarab, do a little damage. I definitely wind up getting more use out of fracturing shells over the course of this island. It turned out to be a surprisingly handy little tool. Rest in pepperoni train. So we're not getting our perfect island reward, but at least we get a bonus power core for our trouble. And our starting pilot gets promoted and gets skilled, which I'm extremely happy to see. I do a little bit of a... Okay, so we just invest that power core into Archimedes. He can now take his double move. And then I was happy to see defend the disposal unit. Always a freebie, always a good decision. Time to make up for past mistakes. Get some rep, get some XP. This one should not be very much trouble, thanks to the disposal unit. So it's a 6v4 if we are counting the disposal unit, and we probably should. It is very powerful. And then we also get the time pod for the island. So we will be about as strong as we can be expected to be for the remainder of detritus disposal. So 2 threats to the grid, and the thruster mech is trapped, but the thruster mech can escape, so it is not in any real peril. And we can start dissolving the mountains and kill some Vec, protect the grid. We can set the Alpha Leaper up for its own demise, since it was covered in acid. And then that just leaves my other 2 mechs to kind of do whatever they want. I think I wind up just using Control Mech to just kind of reposition, get a little bit more of a central spot in the board. And I think I can also use it to pick up the time pod, thanks to Archimedes' double move. Just considering my options before I commit. Yes, I wind up just kind of shoving that tumblebug back as far as I can. The further away it is from any grid buildings, the less chance it has to threaten things with those pesky boulders. And then Archimedes gets his first level up. I believe he gets +1 movement, which is really good. About the best thing you could hope for aside from skilled. The tumblebugs are just being their usual selves. We've got one threatening the grid, which we can deal with the smog mech. I don't think I've talked very much about it yet, but the more smoke upgrade for the smog mech is very powerful. You were already capable of doing potentially a 2-for-1 in its original unupgraded form, sometimes even a 3-for-1. With the smoke upgrade, you get that T shape, 4 tiles of smoke. And usually this doesn't always shake out this way, just because of how the enemy tends to spread out. But it really opens up firing angles. It opens up self-defense. Like if something has webbed the smog mech, it can lob a round directly over the Vec that is restraining it, and then use the smoke to free itself and protect itself. And, if the stars really align, you can smoke, potentially 4 enemies. You never know. It also, it increases the versatility of the healing properties of the smoke. If you need to lob a Hail Mary healing delivery, it just gives you more options. More options, more flexibility, and that is what you want to have in your upgrades. It's the name of the game for Into the Breach. And that is why, after I fully upgraded the control shot, I went for the smoldering shells upgrades. We are keen on getting the damage upgrade for them. It's surprisingly powerful. It makes the shot do 3 damage, and then it lights them on fire. So it's effectively 4 damage. And that is a really good sweet spot. It kills several of the, less tough Alpha Vec. It's guaranteed death for any non-alpha. So you get damage and utility and defense. It's the whole package once you fully upgrade Smoldering Shells. Definitely in contention for the strongest ranged class mech weapon in the game. Which, just goes to show you with this squad, you've got maybe the strongest ranged class weapon in the game, and you've got one of the strongest single target forced movement weapons in the game. That is the control shot. So, it is sort of inevitable that this would be a very powerful, very effective squad. But really, as you can see from watching this mission, we were never in that much actual danger, just because this is Defend the Disposal Unit, and you have, extra instant death acid goofs. So we are halfway to our boss fight encounter. Let's see what was in our time pod. Just a power core. That's fine, we take those. Ralph gets Popular Hero, which is interesting. Now, normally, when I get Popular Hero, I will bench the pilot and keep them safe with the intention of eventually selling them. However, Technician is so useful for the thruster mech, the fact that it does self-damage, that I decide to keep Ralph in the pilot seat. And then I also upgrade the Fracturing Shells to have buildings immune. I foresee this as really enhancing the viability of this weapon. There have been many instances where I've considered using it, but the fact that it would damage the grid prevented me from pulling the trigger. So I would like to test out that upgrade with the Fracturing Shells. And now we have this mission. It's just a very straightforward, take less than 3 grid damage mission. We've got teleporters. I don't like this map layout. We've got this kind of claustrophobic 2-tile corridor with all these grid buildings, and we got those rooting, tooting tumblebugs to deal with. And this first turn turns out to be a doozy. So the trouble with this first turn is we have 3 threats to the grid, the tumblebugs and the alpha mosquito. We've got 3 actions to do something about it, and the way that the tumblebugs have lined themselves up, no enemies are really in a position to get multiple smokes off. We can't risk destroying the unstable boulders, as that would damage the grid. And to make matters worse, the thruster mech is restrained. And I realize that the number of options I have are extremely limited. The only way I could get rid of the mosquito and take care of that tumblebug was to fire fracturing shells at the unstable boulder, but it leaves the thruster mech restrained, and Ralph is doomed. I agonized over this for a long time, and I was kicking myself. I was like, oh, I could have actually just shelved Ralph and not had to worry about him dying. But I was like, dang it, we need to keep this perfect run going as far as, no grid damage. And so I commit to this, and I watch poor Ralph perish before my eyes. But then I remember, I'm playing the Mist Eaters. If luck is on my side, and it is, then we can do an advanced technique, unique only to the Mist Eaters, or if you have Rosy Rivets in your squad, and that is Mech Necromancy. We can cancel Vec attacks and still heal our downed allies, bringing Ralph back from the great beyond. So that is a technique that you don't want to use if you don't have to, but it's definitely worth remembering that you can do it. You can bring damaged mechs back from the dead with smoke. So we manage to solve all of our grid threats, as well as block a spawn and destroy the Shell Scion in the process. And I was breathing a nice sigh of relief when I realized that Ralph was not gone for good. Granted, that was also very lucky. If the enemy had lined itself up slightly differently, I might not have been able to spare a action to put smoke on the destroyed fuselage of the thruster mech. But we did it. And that's what counts. We have 3 threats to the grid. However, we can do a 2-for-1 thanks to bump damage and the fracturing shells. Note how valuable the building's immune upgrade is. I can freely fire it at any grid tile without worrying about friendly fire. And then I believe I just wound up blocking a spawn with Archimedes. We could block a spawn with the Tumblebug, but then it would just blow up the boulder, which we don't want it to do. So the next turn will be a very manageable 2v3. And that should be GG for this mission. It was momentarily very stressful. We still have our perfect score going, and this will be our final mission before the boss fight. I like to go with use the detritus contraption, and again, I wind up regretting my choices. This is usually a pretty player-sided mission variety, but tumblebugs are a huge problem here, because the detritus contraption will target the unstable boulders. And as you will see, this is a problem. The detritus contraption, you have 4 turns to fire it, and it has 4 different salvos. 2 shield every enemy and every friendly on the board, and then the other is 2 missile barrages that do 1 damage to everything on the board. So I have to be very, very careful with juggling these unstable boulders, because I will have to fire the defensive and offensive versions of the detritus contraption, which means inevitably it's going to be targeting unstable boulders. So on this first turn, I'm faffing around. I'm like, oh, I can knock that tumblebug out of the way. I can do this. I can do that. I can blow up at the boulder. Look at me. I'm such a good player. And then I realize, it's like, okay, now I want to fire the detritus contraption, except I'm like, oh, wait. It's going to blow up the unstable boulder and damage the grid. So I waste my temporal reset, and instead I focus on destroying the boulders and pushing them out of the way to keep my precious proto 40k run alive. Yes, this is an opportunity to fire the offensive missile barrage without damaging the grid, so I wanted to take it no matter what. The downside being it will leave Archimedes perilously low HP, so we can't really afford to fire it again. Not without Archimedes healing himself, which I could have done with his second move if I would have moved him into the smoke, but I was being a silly goose. I decided to put him in more of a central position. I think I was just paranoid about the tumblebugs placing yet another unstable boulder in a spot where I would have even more difficulty dislodging it. Now, my ace in the hole moving forward is going to be the detritus contraption's shield function. I can use it to shield unstable boulders, which will in theory, protect it from a future missile barrage, or at the very least protect it from the attentions of a tumblebug. So for instance, on this turn, if I wanted to, I could just ignore the tumblebugs, fire the shields, and I would be okay. But that is just kind of inevitable. It's delaying the inevitable. We also still have to deal with that scarab, which is directly threatening the grid. It is up to the smog mech and the control mech right now to take care of problems. I can at least set myself up for future success by healing Archimedes, as well as canceling that Scarab's attack, and now Archimedes is free to prep us for future success. And it's always worthwhile to try and remove the shields from the enemies if possible, which we can do by blocking a spawn. So things are currently safe, but I'm going to have to probably use the shield again, unless I can start moving those tumblebugs out of the way. So now we have an unpleasant conga line of unstable boulders that I need to address. And I'm in a weird position where the only tool I have that can move unstable boulders is the fracturing shells on the thruster mech. And, you know, a movement tool, it is not really the best at doing. Further frustrated by the fact that, yes, it will move the boulders, but will also do damage and then explode them. So great care must be taken here. And I've already used my temporal reset, so I have to, extremely sit there and think about every option I have. Now, from this angle, I can shove the unstable boulder at E7 away. It will explode and will do 1 damage to the detritus contraption. It has 2 HP. It can take a single small hit like that. So that buys us a little bit of breathing room. Now I just have to deal with the final tumblebug over on G5. And once again, we will be deploying the shield, because it is our last chance to defend the unstable boulders. We have the knowledge that we will be firing a final missile barrage, so the boulders need to be shielded to, not then detonate and scupper my perfect run. Perfect score run. We've already lost a mission objective. So it takes me a while to consider the optimal use for the smog mech, but I decide to light enemies on fire with the idea that they will be trivialized in the final turn. Any on-fire enemy at 2 HP now will be a burning enemy at 1 HP on the final turn, and that means they are doomed. So we can really ignore the mosquito and the scarab. That means on the final turn, we will only have to worry about the 2 tumblebugs and 1 new special guest star, which is a Alpha Leaper, and I'm not happy about that. But fortune smiles. Slightly. Only one of the tumblebugs deploys a boulder, and they deploy it in such a way that we can move it out of the way with the fracturing shells. We just have to clear space for the shielded boulder on F4. So we can move the scarab out of the way. That buys us space. And now we can fire the detritus missiles. And I almost kill Archimedes here, because I would have done 1 damage to him with the missile, and then the boulder would have exploded, finishing him off. Fortunately, I remember and move him out of the way. So that will be mission accomplished. I just need to deal with the Leaper, who is going to kill Penny in the smog mech. And look at that. Thanks to the smoke upgrade, they're fine. So that was a real brain scratcher. This was supposed to be an easy island. This was supposed to be an easy run. I'm the Mist Eaters. I'm the best of the best. But if there is a danger inherent in the Mist Eaters, similar to the bomber mechs. Bomber mechs, when you play them, you can get hit with just nasty analysis paralysis, as well as a minor amount of hubris, knowing that you're playing such a strong squad. And then the Mist Eaters, similarly, your own hubris can work against you. You could be like, this is easy, tumblebugs, who cares, I'm the Mist Eaters. No. You have to take tumblebugs seriously. Especially when you lack, options that really, really deal with them efficiently. With that in mind, we are still on track for a 40k run, in theory. All that stands before us now is the gastropod leader. I don't like this map. I am fiddling with my deployment because I'm concerned about my boys getting webbed and restricting my ability to respond to the inevitable problems that the tumblebug and the gastropod leader will cause. So I decide to try and deploy away from the leapers, leaving the control mech to potentially, if it gets attacked by a Leaper, it can maybe send the Leaper away and use it as a sort of weapon. Leaper attacks are very powerful. They're a very strong anti-Vec tool. So I see some potential here. We've got the Tumblebug and the normal Leaper threatening the grid, but that's an easy 2-for-1 for the Smog mech, thanks to the smoke upgrade. So that leaves my other 2 mechs to deal with the Gastropod leader. And indeed, I can smoke the Gastropod leader with the thruster mech. That will cancel its attack, since it goes first in the initiative order. And then I can move the Leaper to finish off the boss for us. And that will be mission accomplished. With a bonus of blocking the spawn, so the next turn will be a nice, clean, effective 3v3. Beautiful. This turn is 2 threats to the grid, which fracturing shells can trivialize. So everyone else is essentially free to act. I'm curious why the Tumblebug didn't wind up actually doing anything. Maybe it just had, I don't know, maybe its AI fritzed out a little bit. I will happily have it block spawns for us, though. Make itself useful. So the penultimate turn will be a 2v3 my favor. But we're going to be getting a lot of potential spawns coming in. So the final turn will be a clean 3v3, since we can block 2 of these incoming spawns. So in theory, we should be in good shape here. We will not be getting a perfect island reward, but hopefully there will be something fun in the reputation store for us. And the fact that we're not going to be getting a replacement pilot has me curious about whether or not I'm going to be selling Ralph. I'll probably be selling Ralph eventually, but, if I don't have to sell him, I don't, it's not the end of the world, and his technician skill is very useful in the thruster mech. Not like 100% necessary, but it is just nice to have. So that concludes a frustratingly difficult second island for the Mist Eaters. But after the dust has settled, we are still on course for a perfect run. We have a score of 20,000. It's 10,000 per island if you can take no grid damage. Now, these items available to me in the store, I was not especially thrilled about any of them. So I instead elect to just buy a few power cores, pump up my grid defense slightly, and then keep Ralph around. I can save him for a rainy day, and he is still useful in the thruster mech. So I'm okay about that. And I am optimistic that I will have a stronger showing in the next island. I believe I invest both cores into the Smog mech, eventually in the hopes of upgrading its damage. But for now, health and movement boosts are certainly valuable, especially with a skilled pilot. It'll be a very beefy and fast smog mech for the time being. So join me for island number 3, and we'll see if I can keep this run alive. Like, subscribe, share with your pals. Have a good day.